Welcome to the Perfectly Flawed podcast, where we share stories and conversations with amazing people who've achieved extraordinary success by embracing their struggles and imperfections. They've achieved what they have, not despite their perceived flaws, but because of them as well. On today's podcast, we talk to Gethin Jones about his 35 years in and out of the care system and the prison system before finally turning it around and now becoming a huge advocate for changing the prison system for the better of everybody. Very warm welcome to you, Gethin Jones.
Oh, very good. Well, it's very nice to be here, Deborah. I sometimes always do that when I start. I think, what am I doing again? Oh, it's very lovely to be here, Deborah.
It's good to be here. And the reason why I've asked you, Gethin, is when I was conceiving of this podcast, Perfectly Flawed, you were one of the first people that came into my mind as the perfect flawed example of somebody, because people talk about transformations, but you have truly transformed your life. If somebody met you, I don't know, 20 years ago,
Yep.
they would have a completely different experience of you to meeting you today, and we probably wouldn't be the good friends that we are today.
No, it's definitely two different worlds. I actually thought you were going to say that it's because I was flawless.
You're perfectly flawed. No, the whole thing about it is it's okay to be flawed.
It's okay to be flawed.
It's perfectly okay.
Yeah.
And you have embodied that, because I know that now you are, you're a Buddhist follower. You're a Buddhist. You follow philosophies in Buddhism, and that's probably helped bring a huge amount of peace to you.
Yep.
And you are a very peaceful, happy chappy. You're a joy to be around, and I always enjoy your presence. And, it's such positive energy.
Look at that head just exploding.
Well, it's true. Yeah. And, fair dues to you, because you work really hard to get to where you are in, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and physically with your behaviours. So there are a lot of stories, and I don't quite know how we're going to break into your past. Your past?
Should we just break into it?
I wanted to say a quick story that I love that you share. But it's for you to tell your own stories. But what I love is when I think you said you're going up for a job application, and they said and you got name, you filled it out, address, date of birth, any previous criminal convictions, and the space was only 2 or 3 inches big.
Yeah.
I mean, how are you going to fit in? 35 years worth.
Yeah.
But now I would trust you with anything.
I have said that to HR folks, so this would probably be a good way to get people a bit of an idea. I said it's I said if I'd come for a job for you in 2006, my CV would have been 56 offences, 18 convictions, 8 years behind the prison wall, no qualifications, no work history, and a dependent heroin user. Yeah, and there wasn't many employers.
With no address, because you were probably squatting, weren't you?
I was sofa surfing, whatever it kind of was. So I wasn't a great looking advocate when it came to a CV.
You weren't an attractive job prospect for an employer, were you?
No. They weren't queuing up to give me a job. I know that.
But we got to say, where you are now is you are working with the Ministry of Justice. You are liaising with Lord Timpson. Is he Lord Timpson?
He is Lord Timpson now, yes. Lord James Timpson.
Lord James Timpson. You are speaking with the great and the good, and probably some of the great and the bad, to change the way we approach the criminal justice system, which is in tatters. It's putting thousands, and you've got all the stats, but it's putting thousands of people away, and it's expensive, and it's not helping reform.
No, and the first thing I always say, I've got a campaign when I call it ban the C. Yeah, so you won't hear me call it the criminal justice system. I'll just call it the justice system, because when you use the word criminal, you're framing it in one area, or actually it just needs to be a justice system that's just and fair for all, whereas at the moment it's not. And our justice system has become a little bit of society's dustbin in relation to locking people up. And if we go back to the late 80s, early 90s, our prison population was around about 56,000. We're now just about to top 100,000 people, and they're looking at another 20,000 new prison places.
So all the prisons are not even built for the numbers of prisons that they've got in them.
No, exactly not, and not even that. It's also the state of the buildings they're in. If you go to places like Wandsworth and Pentonville, they were built in the 1850s and 1860s, and you're still housing people in them environments. They're rat infested, they're cockroach infested. You can't put modern technologies in there as you've got today. They're using paper applications that they were using back in the 60s and the 70s. There is a drive and a push to be able to try to bring the justice system into the 21st century, or whatever century we're in now.
Yeah.
But it's a very difficult thing to be able to do, because the general public have no empathy for people trapped within the justice system.
Well, I suppose a lot of people think they've done a crime and they should be punished for it.
Yeah. But then you have to ask yourself, so what is punishment? What do you class the punishment as?
What's the purpose of prison?
What's the purpose of prison? So first of all, if you look at what is the punishment, the actual punishment is the loss of liberty. Yeah, and we know that because if you do a small crime, you get small time. If you do a big crime, you get big time. And actually, the loss of liberty is the true punishment, because you're then separated from your friends, your family, and your community. Okay, we all know what that feels like, because we all came out of COVID, and during COVID, we lost our liberty. And everybody felt the pain of that, because they were separated from their families, their communities, and their support networks as well. And they also saw the impact that they had on that from isolating them and not being able to have the contact they had. Yeah, so that is the punishment. So then you ask, what is the purpose? So the purpose of prison is to rehabilitate and educate and give people the opportunity to look and address their behaviours, so that when they come out of prison, they then are in a better place to be able to live a better life.
Reform. But what are you? You've got some numbers around that, like the costs of that.
Yeah.
So if reoffending.
So at the moment, if I just explain where that comes from, because there's a societal problem here as well.
Yeah.
Because even when people do go through a rehabilitation process within prison, society doesn't welcome them back in. Because the same sort of thing was ever. If you've got criminal convictions and you're going for a job, you're less likely to get that job. So you're still being punished for something that you've served your time for. It never disappears. And then what we look at then is like, what is the cost? There's lots of costs, but the financial cost, if people want to understand that, is it costs £50,000 per year to keep somebody in prison. 50,000. Currently, less than 5% of that is probably being spent on rehabilitation and education, and most is being spent on infrastructure, and wages and other things, bits and pieces within it. But then if somebody reoffends and then that person goes to prison, then that cost is around £122,000, because you've got all of the costs leading up to so you've got the arrest, you've got the courts, you've got the solicitors, you've got the barristers, you've got the CPS, you've got all of these other areas, and then you've got the £50,000 on top for that first year in custody.
Yeah. So obviously that's really expensive, and then you have people coming out of prison at the other end who can't get a job and don't have life set up. They don't have the life skills, and so the easiest thing is then to reoffend and carry on the cycle. So it goes round and round. But what then? I suppose for somebody listening, they might be going, well, if people stopped offending in the first place. I'm playing devil's advocate because I know that it's much more complex why people end up in prison in the first place, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But people going, well, if they've done the crime, if they can stop being criminals, then it wouldn't cost society so much. It wouldn't cost the 50,000 a year, and it wouldn't cost the 120,000 for the conviction. Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah, so the first thing I would say is what breeds crime? Yeah, what breeds crime? So for me, it's very much poverty driven. Yeah, poverty driven. If you go and look at the prison system is filled with people from the most poorest areas of society. Yeah, you've got to ask yourself, why is that? Yeah, why is that? And that has not changed since Victorian times. Yeah, we've always locked up the poorest peoples within our society, and poverty leads to an increase in crime. Yeah. When we had the recent cost of living crisis, crime rates went up. you know.
Poverty and social problems and challenges, like
Yeah.
children growing up in homes where there's not
Yeah.
care, attention, there might be addiction or whatever.
So I'll give you some stats in relation to. So there's an ex-prison governor called John Podmore, and John Podmore always said he done this blog once, and he said within it, he said 60% of people in prison should not be there.
Right.
You should only lock up people you're scared of, not people you're mad at. And when we look at them 60% of people, they are people that have got substance misuse, alcohol misuse. They've been traumatised as children. They've come through the care system. You know, we've got ex-veterans with PTSD. We've got homeless people. We've got mental health. Yeah, our prisons are overflowing with society's problems. And that's why we become society's dustbin, because we don't have the infrastructure or the support within society to be able to deal with this. They then become to the justice system and to the police, and then the courts come. They don't know what to do with them, so they lock them up.
So that 60% actually should be having, you know, PTSD, trauma recovery treatment, or they should be having drug and alcohol rehabilitation treatment, or they should be having proper care and nurturing and therapy to get over their childhood issues and challenges, and being educated so that they got jobs. So but instead they're just shoved to one side, and it just gets. The wound gets deeper, doesn't it?
It just gets worse. And what a lot of these people are is what they call low risk, high need. Okay, which means that actually they're always going in and out of prison, but for very short times, for short sentences. So there's not enough time in prison to actually do anything with them.
Yeah.
And when they come out, they're usually coming out with no resource. Yeah. So they won't have any benefits in place. They won't have any housing in place. Yeah. And then we as a society wonder why they go off and reoffend.
Yeah.
So you've got that area there, but also as well, you need to look at the upstream thinking. Yes. There's a term we call now, which is ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, and ACEs are trauma. And what they say is if somebody has 5 to 6 significant ACEs as a child, they're more likely to have substance misuse, alcohol misuse, mental health issues, end up in prison or on the streets. Yeah. So our prisons are filled with people from trauma. But what we're not looking at is what's causing this trauma. Yeah. And at the moment, we've got a big select section of society where we've got dysfunction breeding dysfunction, and it's getting bigger. And we keep on saying, why are our streets becoming more violent? Why are our streets becoming more chaotic? It's because we're not looking at what the true problem is. We're just fixated on we need to lock people up to keep community safe. Lock people up to keep community safe. You don't keep community safe by locking people up. Because less than 2% of the prison population are never getting out. The rest are all getting out at some point. Yeah. If you do nothing with them whilst they're in prison, they are coming back out to your communities, and that's then going to make your communities more unsafe because they're more disadvantaged from when they first went in.
Well, I think it's really important that we share your story or you share your story, not we, but I just want to say on that, when I worked with people in drug and alcohol recovery, and I worked with people on detention orders as well, I kind of came to the conclusion that there were two things that people really needed. And one was a sense of being valued. Each human being was still worth something. And maybe that sense of value and self-worth had been completely crushed. So that was one. And I mean, what if we could just share that sense of value to each of those human beings and be a humane society and care for the people who are in prisons, because each one has a value and deserves something. So that was the first thing. And the second thing was for people then linked to that value to have a sense of purpose in the world. So there's meaning for their life. I mean, just as Viktor Frankl said in his book, Man's Search for Meaning, when they were all in Auschwitz, the ones that survived, or they didn't all survive because it was out of their control, but the ones that mentally kind of got through it best were those that kind of had a sense of purpose and drive through it. And you are one of the people with a huge drive and sense of purpose in your life. I know that you want to really change things in a way that makes a massive, solid difference in the planet, not just in the UK. I know you've been reforming prison in the UK and talking to lots of people to share your influence, but you've also been flown out to talk and consult for prisons in Australia and in America. And I love the fact that you have trouble getting into America to talk about the one thing you're an expert in. Not the one thing, but something you're an expert in, but you're not allowed in because you've got previous criminal convictions, which is like
Yeah.
that's your. And the same with Australia. You can't get into Australia easily.
Yeah.
And that was a country of convicts originally, so you would have got a free pass there before.
Yeah. Well, yeah, not only do I have a free pass, so, and I'll share a bit of my story with you as well, but so I will say, if you think about New South Wales, Australia, the birth of the news of Australia, the first 11 prison ships, left Portsmouth, which is the city of London, So it's 11 prison ships that were led by Captain Phillips, and I'll say the irony now is they come back to Portsmouth to get an ex-prisoner to go over there and fix their prisons.
And I also, I mean, didn't you? I've seen a photo you've got of a place in Portsmouth which is a memorial towards those ships.
Yeah, so it's adjoining. So they're chain link. So it's a chain link, and it's called the Bonds of Friendship.
Right.
And we got a link in Portsmouth, and there's another link in Circular Quay in Sydney.
Right.
And the granite that ours sits on was donated by Sydney, and the granite that theirs sits on was donated by Portsmouth. So it joins the two cities. Because it was that first journey that kind of that set off the colonies in New South Wales. So
and they were called like we're called POMs in Australia, aren't we? Because it's Prisoner of Her Majesty.
Prisoner. No, it's prisoner. No. It's prisoner of. Oh, what's good? It's Prisoner of Mother England. POME.
Oh, really?
POME.
Oh, is it?
Prisoner of Mother England.
Oh, right.
Yeah, so that's where POME came from.
Right.
They're a POME. Prisoner of Mother England.
Right. Usually followed by bastard.
Yeah. I'm going to say other words, but I won't show them on it.
So you basically earned your stripes. Your prison stripes. You are an example of someone who started off life in a tough, things weren't good for you growing up.
Yeah.
What happened?
Yeah, so, well, I kind of shared a minute ago about a dysfunctional family. So I always say, I was born into a dysfunctional family. But I also say to everybody, I don't believe there's any functional families out there. You're all dysfunctional to a point. But mine was certainly dysfunctional. So what that looked like for me was that my mum came from children's homes. Okay, my mum also had learning difficulties, and my father was an alcoholic. And that meant I wasn't able to have the love, the care, or the nurture that I needed to develop as a human being. I also say as well, you can probably find the first 35 years of my life in a filing cabinet somewhere, because somebody was always there. So social services were there from the day I was born. And I just had a few different significant events that happened with me as a child that kind of shaped what my future was going to look like, So I was first taken out of the home, put into a foster placement when I was 2.
Right.
I was returned back home, but the reason I went into there was because my mum was fleeing my alcoholic father. We then went into foster placement again when I was about 5.
With your brother, was it?
Was with my brother.
What, 2 years older was he?
He's about 18 months older than my brother.
Right.
Yes, around about that. So we went into another foster placement. We went into there because my mum had got pregnant by another gentleman, and he sadly lost his life in a road traffic accident. Right. So my mum had a nervous breakdown, so that's why we were put into that foster placement. And I always say the significance of that foster placement was, I was only 5 years of age, and I remember it very clearly. They had these little baby yellow chickens, and I remember being fascinated by them, because I'd never seen these yellow chickens before. You didn't have none in the city that I grew up within. But what I don't remember is wanting, needing, or missing my mum. And that's very significant for a 5-year-old child. So there wasn't the attachment that there should be between mother and child. So childhood wasn't a great time for me as well. My mum was always very negative. She'd tell me I was bad, I was naughty, anything went wrong, it was always my fault. Because of her learning difficulties, she also as well was quite heavy-handed. Yeah, she'd explain with violence. She'd hit me with her hand, slip, stick, whatever was available. And there was never any real positive reinforcement from anyone. It was just all negativity, and everybody focused on my behaviour.
And I imagine even when you went to school, people just saw you maybe as a bit of a troublemaker, did they? Yeah. School
didn't really work for me, and I understand the reason why. If you're not that happy at home, you're probably not going to be that happy at school. I wasn't the one at the front of the class throwing my hand up answering every question. I was at the back of the class mucking about with my mates. And then I got reinforcement of the messages. Yeah, I'll call it the start of the self-fulfilling prophecy, because they too used to tell me I was bad, I was naughty, it was all my fault, And as a child, as you're developing, you start to really believe that stuff, and because you're hearing it all the time, you start to act out the behaviour. If that's what you say, I might as well be it, and then you just kind of act it out. And, you know, and my mum got into a relationship with a bloke called Richard, and he was a violent criminal, and he became very violent towards me and my brother. It made me and my brother become a lot closer.
How old were you at this point?
Probably around about 6, 7,
Right.
yeah, when he came into the home. He was only there for a couple of years, but it was a very painful couple of years, you know, and because of he was a criminal, there'd be times where we had lots of stuff in the house, then there'd be nothing, and then he'd be selling our toys, you know.
Wow.
Yeah, so I remember they bought me a Starsky and Hutch what do they call it, remote control car, and my brother this truck. Yeah, best presents we've ever had in our life. Yeah, but they only lasted about 6 weeks and they got sold.
Wow.
Yeah, so yeah, and it just wasn't a great environment, you know. Fortunately, after a couple of years, he got locked up. I was quite excited about that. Yeah, that was a good significant event. But then what happened? My brother was a bit older, a bit bigger, and a bit angrier, and my brother then started to become violent towards me mum. And even though I didn't like me mum that much, didn't have a good relationship, you know, I didn't want to see my brother beat on her, so I started to wish that he wasn't there.
How old was he then?
He was about 9, 10.
Yeah. Just the hormones kicking in.
Yeah,
as well.
yeah. And then, and I used to wish that he wasn't there because I didn't want to be around it. And then one day I came home and my brother was gone. And literally on that day I lost the most important person in my life, and they put my brother into children's homes. And then I wanted to be in children's homes too. I just wanted to be back with my brother. You know, I remember saying to the social workers that I didn't want to be there, and I was like running away. I was shoplifting from the local shops. I was doing lots of things, and
Trying to get out, trying to.
I just didn't. I just didn't. I didn't want to be at home, but I didn't know what I did. Yeah, I was too young to understand what was going on, but I knew that I wanted to be with my brother. But you know, I wasn't consciously saying, yes, you need to put me into it. But it was the behaviour that was dictating the messages. Yeah, but nobody was taking notice. And then, you know, for me, the justice system got involved. You know, we talk about criminal convictions. I got my first criminal conviction when I was 12. 12 years old was the first time I went in a magistrate's court, well, juvenile court. And I was that young that you couldn't even sit in a dock. I used to have to sit in seats in front of it. But I remember having no fear of that room. And I remember asking the solicitor before I went in there, I said, can you just ask them to put me in care? I just want to be with my brother. They didn't listen. And instead they gave me what's called a 6-month conditional discharge. But I remember walking out and saying to my social worker, I'm going to keep getting in trouble till you put me into care. And I think that was also a bit of a mental knowledge and understanding, which said I could get my needs met by my behaviour.
Yeah.
And I knew that if I just kept on acting up, in the end, I would get my wish.
Yeah, because being at home was worse than being in what you expected care to be like. Yeah.
And also as well, I had 2 younger sisters. Yeah, and my mum sort of like, she was more with my sisters than she was with me. I will say though that once I left, she then pushed that onto my sisters. Do you know what I mean? So there needed to always be a scapegoat. I was the scapegoat at that time. So I ended up being back in front of the court a few months later, and then I got given what was called a care order. Yeah, a full care order. And I always say I remember the care, but I remember the order, but I don't remember the care. Yeah, do you know? And it was definitely a place where you could cultivate a negative belief system about yourself.
But you already had one by then, so it's just like
just reinforced it.
Yeah.
But also as well, what reinforced it, and this was mad, because I got the care order, and the care order's title was Beyond Parental Control. Yeah, Beyond Parental Control. So for me, for years, I took that label as I was beyond parental control. I then ended up working in children's social care many years later, and what it actually means is the parent or caregiver doesn't have the skills or abilities to control the child.
Not that the child's the wrong one.
I'm not the wrong one.
You're not the flawed one.
Yeah, I'm not the flawed one, but they don't explain that to me. It just said the title's Beyond Parental Control. So I automatically took, no one explained it to me.
Yeah.
So I held that title for years. Until I was a professional.
So that's already a really bad start, and you haven't even got into prison. But what it's telling you from a really, really young age is you are a fundamentally flawed human being. You must have believed, I am fundamentally flawed. I am a thoroughly bad person, and no one's telling you it's perfectly okay to be who you are. No.
And at this point as well, I kind of got expelled from school. So my education stopped. When I got into the children's homes, I wasn't reunited with my brother. You know, I understand the reason why. Like I say, I worked in children's social care. At the time, my brother was very settled. I was very unsettled. So in their minds, they thought if they put me with my brother, then actually I could lead him down the same path that I was going. So then I found myself in a system. I truly didn't want to be with him, but I had nowhere else to go. But there was other children in that children's homes as well. We were in the same place. So what we started to do was vote with our feet. So we then started to run away from the children's homes at like 12, 13 years of age. Because we got nowhere to go, we're now sleeping rough in towns and cities across the south of England.
Wow.
And because we're
What
sleeping
age?
12, 13. And because we're sleeping rough, we're doing things we shouldn't be doing. We're sniffing glue, we're sniffing petrol out of the back of cars, we're stealing cars, we're smoking cannabis, taking amphetamine, drinking alcohol, breaking into shops, breaking into houses. You know, we were literally just
trying to
feral
survive.
survival modes,
Yeah.
you know. But then what was happening was all of our behaviours just kept on getting more punished. So I was in and out of the courts like a yo-yo. Nobody at all was asking what is going on for this child. They just kept on punishing and criminalising the behaviour. And then, it got to a point and it was
So
like...
they were perpetuating. We could see it, that actually the justice system was actually reinforcing and pushing you into this behaviour. It started off as being being a troubled young person, but it became them spinning that wheel. So it got worse and worse.
And I really became aware of that. It's a bit further down the line, but when I was 20 years of age, I was in a Crown Court, and I remember a judge, and I remember telling the judge that what you see before you, you created. Yeah, I actually said it to the judge. There's a book. I forgot the name of the book now as well, but it's by a very big barrister, Chris Daw. But he's actually got it in the book as well. You
said that.
Yeah, it's called Justice on Trial. But so he interviewed me, Chris did, and I shared that story. You know, because the funny thing is, I told the judge that, and then he gave me 3 years.
What, from contempt of court?
No, just for the sentence. I was trying to sort of like justify the reason why I was there, and he just didn't care. He just gave me a 3-year sentence, you know, and that's why Chris Daw put it in the book, because the book was called Justice on Trial.
Right. Yeah.
Because he's a QC.
Yeah.
Very high up barrister as well, but he also does not believe the justice system is fit for purpose and it doesn't work.
Yeah.
So
you're 12 or 13 by this time, sleeping rough.
Yeah.
Getting into trouble, and then what happened?
So it kind of just bumbled along in and out, and then because I was in and out of court, and you know, and the things that they were giving me, the sentences weren't really working. Back in my day, they had a thing called detention centres, and they were what they call short, sharp shock. They were filled with violence, bullying, and intimidation.
And that was just the guards, probably.
I don't know, it's the young boys, but there's the boys as well.
Boys and
the guys. Yeah. It's brutal,
unpleasant,
brutal place. And what it was you had to be 14, the youth ones, and they literally 2 weeks after my 14th birthday, they sent me to detention centres. And I was a 14-year-old child, and I always emphasise the word child because when my own son turned 14, I realised just how young I was.
And you went into that cell, and they closed the door.
Yeah.
And what went through your mind?
Well, there was more stuff that went on before that. So when I went in there, it was all the intimidation, the screaming, the shouting, being stripped naked, being given a card, M33681. It was just. I can't even explain what that 2-hour induction reception process was like. And then at the end of it,
you must have been terrified. You had no idea what was coming.
No, you didn't. Everything's heightened. You're just waiting for that nick because they just put
strip search when you're 14. You just.
Yeah.
I mean, you got nothing. You got no dignity.
No dignity, no. And you just put in they call them dog kennels, yeah. So you're just in this very little cell, yeah, and you're just waiting for the door to open. As soon as the door opens, you have to jump up and shout out your name and your number. That's why they give you the card.
What about people must be having panic attacks and all
We
kinds
didn't even
of
know
things.
what panic attacks were.
Yeah,
but literally, you're just on heightened alert.
Yeah.
You're just on alert.
Yeah.
And then you're just going from what literally.
You were a scared dog in your dog kennel.
Yeah, and you're just surviving
Reduced.
every experience, one to the next. But then at the end of it, I remember, going behind the door and having that cell shut and the silence, yeah, it was a relief at the same time, yeah, because that part's done. But I remember lying on the bed and I remember I put the blanket over my head and I literally cried myself to sleep. Yeah, I cried myself to sleep. And, and I wanted somebody, just anybody, to come and take me away.
I remember when I've heard you say that before and you just cried yourself to sleep under the cover and you just wanted somebody, and I thought you were going to say, I just wanted someone to come and give me a hug. But you laughed at that. Yeah, so
Yeah, because
Why?
I didn't even. Yeah. There's another story I can tell within that. Yeah, I'll tell it to you quickly. Yeah, so I'm now 30 years of age, and I'm in another prison. I got into a rehab. Yeah, and people were going to me, "Watch out, Giff. They try to get in your head." Yeah, like the psychologist. Oh, they ain't getting my head. And I remember there was this little woman called Diane. She's probably about 55. Yeah, and she's gone to me. She's gone, Giffin, can I ask you a question? I went, yeah, go on then. What? And I've had my prison shoulders on, been down the gym. I went, yeah, what? She went, when was the last time you felt lonely? I went, felt lonely? What do you mean felt lonely? I ain't never lonely. I know loads of people, always got people around me. She went, all right. She went, when was the last time someone just put their arm around you and told you everything was going to be okay? Literally, my head exploded. I had this wave of emotion, yeah, that I didn't even know had been holding my whole life, and it just come up like a
Wow.
wave,
Your
yeah.
whole body had been taught your whole
Yeah,
life just
yeah, this overwhelming feeling of like, you know, and I didn't even know what it was I'd been hiding or burying. Do you know what I'm saying? You know, and that was that part of it. You know, is when I was that 14-year-old child, I wasn't looking for a cuddle. I wasn't. I just wanted somebody to come and take me away. Yeah, take me out
you
of
wouldn't
that.
even have responded to that because you were so locked
No,
into
no,
survival mode and
yeah,
protection mode
yeah.
where you couldn't have been soft enough to receive a hug.
No,
Yeah.
no, no, no,
And you couldn't
no.
risk that.
And
Yeah.
and I suppose unconsciously or subconsciously or whatever area you want to kind of call it is something inside broke, and the way I explain it to people and how it broke, it kind of gave me a script for the rest of my life, and the script simply said I was never going to trust another living soul.
This was
Yeah.
when you were 14.
This is when I was in that prison.
Yeah,
That prison, my
that
life
night.
changed. Yeah, my
Yeah.
life changed from there. Yeah, all bets were off after that. Yeah, after that sentence, it was literally like, if this is all you got, bring it on.
Yeah.
Yeah, bring it on. And what I said to myself was, I was never going to trust another living soul. The only person I was going to depend upon was me, and I wasn't playing your games.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just going to go and live my own life by my own rules.
I mean, there must have been. I mean, of course, living your own life by your own laws in society is not always a good thing, but there is something in that is good.
Yeah.
There's something in that I'm going to live my own life my own way. There's a positive to that as well as a negative, isn't there?
Yeah, and that's where you transfer it in relation to what it is that I kind of do today. But in relation to that, because I was so isolated and so broken and so alone, yeah, that mental script led me to this. And I'll just give you a bit of chronology, and it just only takes a moment to say it. So what happened when I got out of the detention centre? Yeah, it sent me on a 20-year self-destruct. And what that looked like was I ended up being in secure units at 14, secure units at 15, got my second custodial sentence at the age of 15. I called that the full stop on my childhood.
Right.
I ended up spending a total of 8 years of my life behind a prison wall. I became an intravenous dependent heroin user. I spent time on the streets and in homeless hostels, and I destroyed any relationship that came my way. It wasn't that people didn't want to love or care for me. I had an unconscious built-in mechanism that just said, I'm going to push you away before you push me away, and I'll hurt you before you hurt me. So actually that kind of that way of thinking just destroyed me from the inside out.
Yeah. Yeah. You couldn't let anything positive in or out.
No,
You couldn't let that grow from inside, and you couldn't let
no.
other people or other influences, positive influences, love, positive energy come at you.
I didn't even know what an emotion was. Yeah, I remember going into a detox. Yeah, when I was 26. Yeah, in 1997. This was. Yeah, I didn't turn my life around until 2006. I was I had so much stuff going that went on. But I remember I was in this detox. Yeah, it was the first ever one, and there was a woman in there. She's an alcoholic, and she'd been in there for years. She'd been in and out for ages. And then they gone to her one day. They said, "So why do you drink?" And she went, "I can't deal with my emotions." I remember looking like a puppy dog, thinking, what's she going on about? Emotions. In my head, yeah, you was either happy or you was pissed off. Yeah, that was it. Yeah. And I had no idea about all of these emotions. They started getting these emotion charts out with all of these faces. And I'm like thinking, what are you going on about?
Yeah.
I had no concept of emotion because I just had it all so buried and so deep.
Yeah.
You know, and especially within prison environments and also drug environments, street environments, you can't show emotion. You cannot show it. Yeah, you have to stay safe. Yeah. And it is. I remember like going into prison, and I went from a young person's prison to an adult prison, and I remember there's an old timer there, and he went, "Geff, remember, people take kindness as a weakness. Yeah, don't show any kindness to anyone because it's a weakness. Yeah, and that was the stuff that was installed in you. Yeah, so you just had to.
Well, that's another thing for what prison's doing in terms of not helping people to reform, is you're surrounding people with all this. You're reinforcing all the negative talk, because you're not going to get many people going in who have a kind of Zen-like appreciation of life, who are going around saying, let me teach you to meditate, or let me teach you to understand your feelings, or reframing things in a happy way. You're just not surrounded by those influences. You're surrounded by other people that are just as traumatized, angry, pissed off, violent.
Well, and that's the thing. Like when I go into prisons today, and I also say this as well with prison officers, anybody at all. Yeah, so what you have to do is you have to mirror and show the behaviour you want them to kind of practice. Yeah, do you know what I mean? So you have to show what love, care, kindness, compassion looks like. Yeah. I'll show you here. I've got a little teddy here.
Oh yeah, Priscilla,
I don't mind cuddling Telly. Yeah,
do you want to explain why we brought?
I'll explain her in a minute. Yeah, but like so just because I'm talking about being a roughy toughy prisoner, I'll still
show that you're the cuddly guy.
Yeah, I'm a cuddly guy as well, and I do that in jail as well. Do you know? Is I have no issue with, and I've worked with some of the what you would class as most dangerous people in the country. Yeah, and I will sit there and I will show love, care, kindness, compassion, and I break down so many barriers just because I show them something different. And the other part within that, they don't see me as a threat because I'm literally naked. Do you know what I mean? Sense? So I'll just show all of me.
But you must have had, I mean, we've kind of like dotted around, so I don't know whether you want to keep going on the chronology about, I suppose the big question is, how did you then change from being an intravenous drug user who's in and out of prison all the time to the person you are now? And I've forgotten what B was, actually.
And what I do now?
What was B? Oh, I can't remember. I'll come to B.
B will pop back in a minute anyway. B always does.
Tell me about your, incredible transformation. What triggered that?
Yeah. So you go to have my mugshot, that'll kind of come up on here as well.
I remember what B is.
Go on.
B was, despite all of that hardship and the fact that you were kind of blocked from your emotions and you're in survivor mode, I think there were probably quite a lot of skills that you had that have led to you being so successful now as well. So like for one is you are an amazing communicator, and I'm sure you got on very well, and you had to get on well with whether it was the guards, whether it was the most violent fellow prisoners that could have. You know how to work with people. You've got very high emotional intelligence and communication skills.
So I can talk about the transferable skills. I call them transferable skills. And I can talk about that as well. But if I just talk about the shift and the change and how that kind of happened, because this also links in about when we talk about the word rehabilitation. Because I struggle with the word rehabilitation. Works for some, but not for everybody. Right. So if somebody goes to prison first time and they've lived quite a good life before and they've made a few mistakes, it's easy to rehabilitate them, put them on the same path. Right. But somebody with my life,
there's no to it.
There's no to it. And I always explain it a bit like the best way to explain it to people is like if you break your arm, you go to the hospital. They then put on a plaster. When the plaster comes off, you go to the physio so they can rehabilitate it so it works like it once did. What if it didn't work in the first place? Exactly. What are you rehabilitating that to?
Got it. So what would you call it for you?
So there's a thing which is called desistance, and desistance is to desist from crime, but that is also about creating a whole new identity.
That's what you've done.
That's what I've done. I've created a whole new identity.
You're a person I know you said earlier, you said it's my mother actually. You feel like you've lived two lives.
Two lives, I created a whole new identity, where people struggle with the smallest of changes, you know, and it might even be that they're at work and they got a bit of a restructure and they might have to move to another office and you watch them scream and pull their hairs out. And these are sometimes professionals that are working with people like me that will expect me to change everything about my life. And then they moan because I'm making mistakes and I'm pushing back against it. And like, you can't even change your office.
I mean, people are so resistant to the smallest change and it threatens if it threatens their identity. Like even starting to go
Yeah.
to the gym or whatever.
Yeah, there was massive things for me. I remember like when I used to think about changing. Yeah, the one thing that because I only had my identity of who I was. One of the biggest fears that stopped me as well was that I thought if I turned my life around and change, my peers, my friends
Yeah.
would feel that I'd sold out and gone weak.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was a true fear for me because I would then be rejected by my community because I'm no longer part of their community. But then alongside of that, I'm trying to get into another community that doesn't want me. Yeah, so I've got this community that doesn't want me to leave, but I have to leave, and then this community that's not going to accept me.
So that's terrifying. I know you've done sailing with young people, but it's a bit like leaving the shore. But you don't know whether there's land on the other side. But once you've left the shore, you're not allowed back. You're going to be stuck.
I call it no man's land. It was, and that no man's land was probably the hardest thing. But that was a whole journey just to get to no man's land. Yeah.
But it has to get bad enough that you're prepared to take that risk of leaving it, even though there's no security on the other side.
Yeah. So for me, I always say, I went back to prison in the year 2000, and that's where my mugshot was. I'm just going to put Priscilla there, so that's where my mugshot was. And I was back in Winchester Prison. I first went into that prison as a 15-year-old child.
Yeah, we'll show the mugshot, by the way, around now.
Yeah, 15-year-old child. Yeah, I'm just going to put this into perspective. Yeah, so I was a care leaver. Care leavers make up 1% of the population, just 1%. They make up over 50% of the youth justice system. Yeah, and 26% of the adult justice system. Okay, so what that says as a society is we see the vulnerability of a child. Yeah, they respond negatively in their behaviour linked to their trauma. We then punish and criminalise the behaviour and put them into another system. They've done it in my day and they're still doing it to this day now. Okay, but what happened was I went back into that prison. I was coming off heroin, crack, alcohol, Valium, you name it, I was taking it. I was a walking dustbin. And I remember just having this thought and just thinking, is this it? There has to be more to life than this. Yeah, so it was the question that I had in my head.
So that's like almost like a little chink of light. Like everything else was
just asking a question. Yeah, it's just asking, is there got to be more to life than this? Yeah. And people used to say to me, Geff, you need a change. Yeah, excuse my French, but I used to say, no shit, Sherlock. I'll stick needles in my neck. But change into what? I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, how? And
and how do you do it? So
you probably didn't even believe it was possible.
No. So what it was for me, so they'd start to have these rehabs in the prisons, which were quite new. Yeah, you had these wrapped programs. Yeah. So in my head, I sort of like thought to myself, do you know what? I'm going to go on one of these drug programs. Yeah. But complete honesty, I went onto this drug program because I thought to myself, if I can get a handle on the gear, when I get out, I can just sell it and not use it. I went on the drug program to become a successful criminal. Yeah. Then what happened was when I was on there, they said, Gethin, we've got this fella coming in. We'd like you to listen to him speak. And I remember walking in there, looking at this bloke and just thinking, what do you know about me, mate? What do you know about my life? And then he started to share his story. And when he shared his story, I identified with parts of it. Not all of it, but parts of it. And there was enough. And then what he did was he talked about this new life. And he talked about that he had a home, that he had a job, that he had a family, he went on holidays, he had a driving licence, bank account, all this normal stuff. My jaw hit the floor.
Wow.
Because for the first time in my life, I saw that I could have something different.
You saw something on the other side.
Because I didn't believe I could have that life, but he showed me that I could. Yeah, so now what it is, I've now got the vision
and
of where I can go, the possibility, yeah. So then what it is, I've then got to go, I've got to work to get there, yeah. So I'd like to say, I've got that picture there, and I thought, brilliant, done, sorted. It took me 5 years. 5 years of going in and out of treatment programs, therapies, and the best way to explain it is I had to unpick my 35-year filing cabinet. Yeah. I had to unpick it all. And I had to keep going into lots of different programs. I was failing, slipping, sliding, all sorts of things, but I kept on moving slowly in the right direction.
And you needed all those relapses and everything else to learn. You learned different things each time, I'm sure.
Yeah, and also as well, my if you want to call it trauma, and I do call it trauma, it was so big, that actually I had to do it in bite-sized pieces. Yeah. The relapse was a little bit of a breather.
Yeah.
It was
you
literally
can't do
a breather.
It all at once. It's a lot to assimilate into
it was too big for me.
Yeah,
it was too
integrate.
big. Yeah. It was too big, and so that's how I did mine.
Reason why people self-medicate.
Yeah.
There's a reason, and
Yeah, and I didn't even know. I was self-medicating from the age of 14.
Yeah.
14 years of
Yeah.
age is when I probably started to self-medicate.
Yeah.
And from 14 years of age, I could trace myself using something,
Yeah.
right up until the point of 35 of no more.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? So 21 years of complete self-medicating just shows the level of trauma that I was trying to deal with.
Yeah. Yeah. And so you spent 5 years going through it, but you kept that vision and that belief in that vision, did you?
Yeah, I knew that it was possible, but the thing with me is...
Have you got it now?
I have got it now. I've got all of that and some. So for me, the reason I always call it a bit of a mind melt. And this is the reason why. So if we look at victims and perpetrators, for me, my perpetrator was the system. The system. I'm now being told I've got to go and work with my perpetrator to get fixed. Because it's the system that holds the intervention and the support. So they're saying trust us, and I'm like, what?
How can I?
How can I? So how I explain it as well is, for what happened for me was I was very caught up in how to be able to work with this system that I fundamentally mistrusted. The breakthrough came was when I had a realization was actually I don't have to trust the system. I have to trust the individuals that are working within it. And then what I started to do was trust people.
Right.
Trust people. And there were certain people that showed me love, care, kindness and compassion. And no matter how I acted or how I pushed, they stood firm and worked with all of it.
They're amazing. Those people are amazing. What a gift.
What a gift. And the funny thing is as well, because we've got these amazing people, because the truth is most people have got more empathy for a dog than they have a human being. Mm-hmm. If you go to the pound to go and rescue a dog that's been abused as a puppy, it will either meet you with snarling teeth or it'll cower away. You have to go to that dog every day with love, care, kindness and compassion. And then one day that dog will meet you with a wagging tail. You have to stand firm and just keep doing what you know is right. People are the same, and we've got some amazing, fantastic, beautiful individuals that work in a system that works against them, and they are able to reach these people that really need it.
And I think there was one person, I know you've had a few really significant people, but maybe worth naming, the woman that took you under her wing and gave you your first job opportunity in government.
So that was Cecile. So Cecile, like you say, when I turned my life around, I had 56 offences, 18 convictions, 8 years behind a prison wall. No work history. It weren't great looking CV. So what I decided to do is, because I knew that I needed to get some jobs, but I didn't know what it meant to work. So I first of all went out and done 2 hours a week volunteering in a fiberglass workshop that also taught young people out sailing. Over a 9-month period, I went from 2 hours a week volunteering to volunteering for 37 hours a week. Just to learn a bit about me and what skills I kind of had.
Probably good for you to go out sailing and stuff, because it's good for your soul as well. You needed that.
So I didn't do it at the beginning, because I had to prove myself.
Right.
I've got a long history. So I was in the fiberglass workshop, but the more I turned up, and the more they could say that I had the benefits. Then they said, "Do you want to start coming out on the boats?" So first of all, I was going out on the boats without young people on there, and then they built up to give me an opportunity on there. And it's actually funny because it was a young person that told me what my future would be. Really? I remember going to Port Solent in Portsmouth, and we're going off to pay the fees. There's this young girl there and everything like that, and she went, "I really like it when you're on the boat, Gethin." I said, "Why is that?" She said, you have a real good laugh with us, but you also give us some really good advice as well. And on that day I thought, you know what, I'm going to be a youth worker. I'm going to be a youth worker. So she kind of showed me what my life could be. But
do you know, Geth, that's still your speciality, which is you give some really great insight and great advice, but you always bring good times and fun and joy and laughter, so that's, there was that little, it was obviously already there. It was like nascent.
Nascent, and it was a child that showed me what my future is. I remember years ago saying, "Geff, you can learn so much from children." And that child showed me that. So what happened was then I sort of there was a young person's hostel called the Foyer, which worked for 16 to 25-year-olds. And I went there and had an interview just as a part-time staff member, a lady called Cecile Todd. And she gave me my first job. She gave me my opportunity. And I remember, because I'd never really done interviews before, so I went and said to her, "Can I have some feedback on the interview?" Even though I'd got the job. And she went, "Gethin," you was just you. If I can give you one bit of advice, don't ever stop being you. Yeah, and that was it really. And so what happened was that job, I progressed very quickly. This links to the transferable skills. So I went from 2 hours a week volunteering to 7 years later being a service manager within Portsmouth City Council on Public Health, overseeing a staff team of 40 to reduce health inequalities to the most deprived area of the city I grew up within, and was holding a £1 million a year budget. Yeah.
Woo!
I also educated myself to the equivalent of a degree. Yeah. And then got
Having
myself.
left school at like 12 or 13, yeah.
And got an MVQ5 in leadership and management within children's social care. Yeah. And they were all transferable skills. Yeah, I'll give you a little bit of
It
one.
must have been, and also what was going on inside you in terms of like you got to that vision,
Yeah.
and you were showing. I mean, your self-worth must have just transferred. You must be. That was when you became a different person.
Different person. But what it is because I always believed, like when I went to the jail on that last one, I literally believed my life would never be worth more than a prison cell, council estate, and a bag of drugs. I literally believed that was it. That was my life. Yeah. And then what it was is the more things I did, the more I kind of learned. Yeah. So what I know today is I have a high level of intelligence. Yeah, I know this. Yeah. But what it is I always had a high level of intelligence. But as a child, I wasn't ready to go through an academic system because I was in survival mode, as so many children are today. Once I'd kind of, if we look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, once I'd had my basic needs met and I had the emotional wealth and support of everybody else around me, I was then able to go through the education and self-accolation process, which has led me to the person I am today. You know, I didn't have the foundations. We are sending so many children to school today, expecting them to adhere to a curriculum that they can't do because I haven't even got food in the cupboard at home. And then what we do is we put them in detention, isolation, exclusion. We do all of this sort of stuff, and it's like these are children that are not even got their basic needs being met. So
I'm with you. You. So you've got so far to go still. I know you've got massive ambitions. You've already undergone this incredible transformation, and you travel around the world. I've seen you go up to the top of all these places like mountain peaks and stand on your head. You're having fun, and you're joyful, and you just spread good energy. You're in your philosophy group. You're learning about life, and you're bringing your wisdom. I know you finished going and talking in prisons. You did your final prison talk at the first place.
So on the 23rd of January 1985, I went into that prison as a 14-year-old child. And on the 23rd of January 2025 this year, I went and done my last ever prison talk in the same prison I walked into. And I had 80 guests there as well to kind of, and it was really emotional as well because literally the 80 guests were my whole life.
And I was meant to be there. I just couldn't come, sorry.
That's okay. And then what they did as well, because I wanted it to be like a bit of a real big ending, a significant ending. So what they did as well was at the end, they got all of my guests outside of the prison, and then they opened the gates, so I could walk out to all of these people.
Because when you walked out when you were 14, you walked out to no one, didn't you?
No one, just a social worker picked me up to take me to another children's home.
So that was what you got when you were 14-year-old, and this time you had supporters, friends, family.
I remember the word I was trying to. I remember the word I was trying to. I wanted to make it a symbolic act, and it was a closing of one chapter, the start of a new.
But in that intervening time, while you were talking, you must have touched just like that one guy came in and talked and touched your life and has turned it around. The multiple effect of that, you must have touched. There must be thousands that you've touched.
And I know that I have, and the journey continues. So even so my old logo was Gethin Jones, unlocking potential. My logo now just says unlocking potential, and what I say is Gethin Jones has left the building. But what that is as well, and this also comes into leadership as well. I say the true definition of a leader is to create, cultivate, and hold up other leaders. So I've now got an associates model where I've got justice consultants, justice trainers, justice speakers, and what I do is I hold them up, so that they can now go into the prisons and do all of that work. And there's more of them, which means that we now impact even more people. But they've got the same unlocking potential philosophy, which is about helping, making a difference, supporting, and making a justice system that's fit for purpose.
So it's growing and growing, and I hope you keep connecting to people of influence at every level, while also touching the people in the situation so that they can turn around and spread that. So, Geth, you are one of the most extraordinary people I know, and I just really value you as a human being in the world that I'm lucky enough to have met, and also as a dear friend. We're born in the same year.
Yeah, year of the pig. Year of the pig.
Year of the pig. You know, we've come from different worlds, but you know, there's a meeting point. And so let me ask you the two questions that I ask everyone.
Yep.
The first one is, what does being perfectly flawed, what does the concept of perfectly flawed mean to you?
Yeah, so I had an affirmation when I was going through treatment program, and it said, we're perfectly imperfect. Yeah, perfectly imperfect. And for me, being flawed means that I'm human. Yeah, because if I was flawless, I wouldn't be human, you know. And I believe, you know, that we are all the product of our mistakes. Yeah, but we only become that product once we've learned from that mistake. Yeah, so for me, I embrace my flawness, my flaws, and I embrace, future mistakes, because I'm not perfect, not by a long shot, and I still make lots and lots of mistakes, and that's okay, as long as I continue to learn from them.
That's it. And I remember your thing of fail. You talk about fail.
Yeah, so fail stands for first attempt in learning. Yeah, when I was turning my life around, I always say it was 50 attempts in learning, but I didn't fail the same way twice.
Right.
And I put this one on there as well, because most people know it as well. If you think of WD-40, everybody knows WD-40, but what that actually stands for is water displacement, and it was their 40th attempt. They failed 39 times before they got the right lubrication, so they decided to put their failures into their success, because without them, they wouldn't have a global product.
Yeah, so being perfectly flawed means that you're someone who has learnt from your flaws, learnt from your failures, learnt from the hardships, and it's perfectly okay to be that.
Absolutely.
We're all perfectly imperfect. So there's a real compassion, which I know is big, very important in Buddhism as well, a compassion and acceptance of your human condition.
Absolutely, yeah. And I love who I am today. Yeah, I said it to your mum before. Yeah, and lots of people have said this to me. They go, Would you change anything?" And I'm like, I wouldn't change one single thing. Yeah, because I absolutely love who I am today. But I only am that person because of every single experience that happened. And if you take one of them experiences away, I'm no longer the same person. It's like having the best recipe for the best cake you've ever made in your life. Yeah, if you take one ingredient out, it's no longer the same cake.
You chose the hard life, but you chose it so that you could make big gains. And I think on the path of life, it's not the people that have reached the top, whatever that top is. Extraordinary success for me is how far you've travelled from one place to another, and you've travelled a long hard road, and long may it continue, because I mean you've got the momentum. You're going to keep going, and I know you're going to carry on doing some extraordinary things in the world and keep making your impact, and I wish you all the luck. I just have one final question for you before we finish.
Go for it.
What advice would you give the younger you?
Oh, yeah, that's a very difficult. What advice would I give the younger you? Yeah, is I would literally just say to me, there are people that care. Yeah, there are people that care. There are people that really do want the best for you. You just need to be able to open your eyes and see them. Yes, to see them. In my book, I kind of talk about...
You're not alone.
Yeah, in my book, I talk about it as singing nightingales. Yeah, so the singing nightingales were always singing. I just weren't able to hear them. Yeah, once I was able to open my ears and my eyes, I could then hear their song, and it was that song that helped me to be who I am today. And when I look back in my history, even though I was a child, and even though I was very graphic about sort of what my life was, there was care there. There was care there. I just wasn't able to see it because I had so much going on. So that's what I would say to my younger self. There is care here. There is care. You just need to be able to open your eyes just to be able to see it.
Well, on that note, I'm just going to say thank you very much for coming today and for sharing your life story and your insights. And I wish you the very, very best as you continue to be a positive light in the world.
Thank you very much, Deborah Henley, and I'm glad we're not standing up because you are about 8 foot taller than me. But thank you.
All righty. Thanks to Gethin Jones, and thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. I just love spending time with Gethin. He brings so much joy and delight to everybody he meets, and I know he is going to change prison systems all over the world in his speaking in Australia, in America, and especially in the UK, where he's speaking and advocating at the highest level. And I really wish him the very best of luck and hope he makes all the differences that he's been put on this planet to make.